You're having a lot of fun these days, aren't you?
Not much fun. Hey, Sterile. Just thank the Lord you don't live in Florida.
Put an air and like, no, it looks like a luncheon. It's my passport. So that's today, I have a passport picture. The difference.
Away from my house, not too long. He's driving the first day for 2 hours. Have a whole lurching ground. Benadryl, come back and say, it was worth it. That's happening.
They're on the road. She's shepherding. Let's call the June 10th, 2024 Lamar County School Board meeting into session. See, Ms. Hensling's not here, so I will be stepping in, trying to fumble through this for the first time, so bear with me. As always, we will open up with prayer. I've asked Mr. Chance to lead us in prayer.
Let's pray. Dear Heavenly Father, thank you for everyone in this room, Lord, and thank you for all of our staff across the district, our teachers, our administrators, and thank you and for our students, Lord. You know, we're on the summer break, but we still know that we need you, and they need your guidance and leadership as they go through the summer and come back into the school year. Lord, guide our decisions here tonight. We know that you're always with us, but we be with us as we weigh the pros and cons and do the business of the district. In Jesus Christ's name I pray. Amen.
Pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, before we begin, I'd like to remind everyone that if you're not submitted to speak in front of the board tonight, and been approved by the board president at least 10 days in advance of the meeting, that you will not be allowed to speak tonight. First off, the approval of the general agenda. Do I have a motion?
Make a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
Second. Got a second? All in favor?
Aye.
That is unanimous. Now we will hear from Ms. Hession, presentation of the 2025 budget.
Okay, everyone's got a copy of this, I believe. This is just the time of year that we present our budget to the public. We've been working on this since about January. So we work half of our fiscal year trying to get towards the next year. So that's our normal operating process. It takes a lot of money, a lot of people. Lamar County Schools is the 6th largest district in the state, and Lamar County, I believe, is number 2 in growing counties in the state. So it takes a lot of money and a long time in this process to build a budget for this district. The way we do the process, we meet with our principals, we find out what their needs are as far as employees, anything to operate their schools, any non-operating ticket items that are one-time, whether it's student desk, it could be painting their building, parking lots, and many other things, playgrounds. So we listen to what they feel is their needs and work that into the budget as well. We then meet with the departments and directors of those departments with the same process, just to see what the needs are for that group. So the largest dollar item, as well as the most time that goes into building the budget, is salaries and the budgeting for all our employees. We currently have about 1,600 employees district-wide. The budgets are an estimate. We have some actual items, actual amounts at this point, but some of it's just based on history and estimates, just with the knowledge that we have right now for that. So the one thing I try to remind everybody every year is our fiscal year, July 1 through June 30th. The Board of Supervisors is October through September, and that's a huge difference in that most of our tax money, we go through the 6 months, the first 6 months of our fiscal year and having school without receiving hardly any. I mean, we've received some from the county, but it's very small amounts. We get the large amount in January and February when people pay their taxes. So that being said, with that difference, we have to have a healthy fund balance on hand to help us operate in cash flow during those months that we don't have such a large tax.
That's why it's so important for us to budget.
That's the key to
essential.
budgeting. It is. We have to because of that. So.
And I will say I'm very proud that we don't have to do tax anticipation notes and things like that. We don't have to borrow money to pay payroll.
And that's many school districts in the state do have to do that, and it's just the budgets are so tight that they have to do that every year in the fall. So I'm thankful that we don't have to do that. We're just going to go over this, just an overview of the slides. This is not the actual budget. The actual budget is in the back, and it's about 30 pages. So we worked really hard for 6 months, and it ends up being 30 pages. It's a little disheartening, but that's just the way it is. So, but these slides are just an overview. So. On the school enrollment, we have 17 schools. There's 15 listed here. We do have the Lamar County Center for Technical Education and the Jefferson Todd Educational Center. The student numbers for those 2 locations are in these, wherever those children, their home school was at, so it's in here. So we've got 10,260 as the estimated. That does not include our 300 pre-K students. That's where we're getting that right at about 10,600.
We receive a separate allocation that's set aside
Right.
just for those pre-Ks.
So with 10,600 students and about 1,600 employees, it takes a lot of revenue and a lot of expenditures for that. So on our revenue, the categories, you have lots of different avenues on local. We have state, and our ad valorem from the county goes into the local. We have state funds, federal funds, and 16th section funds. The majority of it comes from the state at 54%. The next is the local, which is 36%, and then we have about 8% federal and 2% 16th section. So our projected revenue is 135, 923, 533 next year. These next slides are just, it's going to break down each one of those and what is in local, federal, state. But on the local, the largest item, of course, is our ad valorem for operating. Each year, now, this is estimated numbers at this point. Each year, the school board will make a request by August 15th to the Board of Supervisors for the amount that we need them to, the amount of dollars we want. They set the millage to bring in those dollars. This is the best estimate we have at this point. When I bring the resolution to you in August, it will be a better number because we'll have June and July collections. So it'll be a little bit better than my estimate, so it'll be closer, so. That is done each year, and like I said, they set the millage, we do not, and this estimate of $37,791,467, that is Lamar County and our portion from Pearl River County for the Lumberton section. We also have some ad valorem for debt service at $5,675,000. That is the last payment of the 2005 bonds, as well as the 2013 limited tax notes. Student activities, $2,015,000. That is anything that comes in, actually dollars that comes in at the school level. That's game revenue, fundraisers, fees, donations, anything that actually goes into the schools. That is and that is all of our schools together. Child nutrition, that is local paid students and adults, $1,471,000. Contributions and donations, $579,000. We've got an estimated $500,000 in early learning collaborative tax credit donations, and about $79,000 we get from Hasbro Clinic each year, and it is a portion of one or two of our athletic trainers at two of the high schools. They give us a portion of that. Revenue in lieu, this is ad valorem. This is 10-year. That if a business comes in, they do not have to pay their ad valorem taxes, their full tax amount for 10 years if that is a negotiated item with the county board of supervisors. Yes. Currently, we have they give us the portion that the school district is due for this 10 years before it comes on the actual tax rolls. So we have a solar farm in Summerall area, and then we have the Idaho Forest at Lumberton that is in this. So we expect to give about $1 million off that in 10 years. Wait, no, next year. That is a 10-year payment. So interest earnings, $655,000. Last year we did.
I want to toot your horn for just a second, because a lot of times I hear we have to run school more like business. We have to, and Jennifer and her people team really identified that as a way that we could, when interest rates go up, it's good. It's bad on car payments and house payments and this, that, and the other. But if you've got money in the bank and you've got money sitting, interest rates going up is a good thing. And so that $655,000 is up a large.
Well, it was 0.5% is what we're getting, and we y'all redid it last year, and we get 3.8%. So, and that's a fixed rate, so it's not anything that we have to. And that means a lot.
That means a lot. And that's why I wanted to point that out, and appreciate you doing it.
Hey, it's the right thing to do. Grants, we do get some small teacher grants. That's collectively for about $40,000. Some of those do come from the majority of that comes from the Lamar County Education Foundation for our teachers. Mineral leases and other taxes, these are just some small ticket items. This comes from the Chancery Clerk. I think it's some back taxes that are paid from time to time, or some damages and things that we get from them. Extra pay reimbursement. That if we have the activity funds at the schools reimburse the district if they go on a field trip, at not athletic events, but just field trips where they reimburse the cost of a bus driver, their time, and if they use a school bus, they have to reimburse that at $2 a mile. So that is that, and just very small items that come in. Sometimes we get copy fees and things like that. So it's just, that's a collection of a lot of small items. So, tuition from individuals, $35,000. That's the students that live in Covington County but pay tuition to go to some law schools. So we do have a few of those still. So our expected local revenue is $49,378,404. Our state, the state revenue changed a little bit this year. The old M80P formula that has been in existence for 20+ years the state legislators, did a new funding formula. It's called the Mississippi School Funding Formula. In this, it's just a total rewrite of, and to be honest, I don't have exactly how the formula works. We've not been trained on that at this point, but this is the total amount that we do qualify for. So that's $69,086,762 coming from the state. And the big difference in these two is that MAEP was based on average daily attendance. So October, November, you had an outbreak of flu, our ADA went down, our allocation went down. So this is based on membership, so that's enrollment. So that is, and I believe it's still the same 2 months, just with a little bit of training of how.
Yeah, that's what I've heard too, but understand the difference is that even though you saw the projections on our student enrollment, we have to staff based on the projections of our students. And so when we have to project that, and if a kid doesn't show up, I mean, if you just say 1%, we had 1% of our student body in our district that was out for the day, that's over 100 students, it's 150 students, and 105 students, excuse me. And so when you start looking at that would equate for us about 4 teacher units. And so it's important for us because we still have to have a teacher in the classroom. If that kid doesn't show up or doesn't show up, or when he does and doesn't, that sort of thing. So the average daily membership is going to give us a truer sense of what our funding should be based on our enrollment.
They also did a little bit different. They put, we had an increase in the employer portion of our retirement system, our PERS. So it's 0.5% more that the district has to put in, and as well, we had a health insurance increase in January this year was a 5% increase. So they also give us an allocation of $468,000 to kind of alleviate that, because that kind of come after the formula was written, is what I understand. So that was why it was and next year it'll kind of be wrapped up in that one allocation. But on the PERS, it's set at this point to go up 0.5% per year for the next 5 years. So with this, we're currently putting in 17.9% of all employees. The district that's the portion, and then the employee puts in 9%. So that's a lot of money for the district, a lot. So,
Especially, and if you don't mind, I'm sorry, I don't mean to
no,
say
that's fine.
especially when you take the average teacher in our school district. I'm sorry.
I got it somewhere over here. Yeah, it's staggering.
Yeah, it's 15 years with a double A.
Double A was 15, so an average, and that's the average years our teachers have. And the salary for a double A was 15. For next year is $54,930. The fringes on that is $14,035, plus the health insurance is $5,508. So we budget about $75,000 for a teacher that is making $54,900. And times 875.
Yes.
So really, on a brand new teacher right out of college, we budget about $60,000. They're not making but 40 something, 40 something, yeah. But that's good. The retirement system will benefit all of us in the long run. So thankful for that. On the state vocational, we do $1,013,000. That is salary reimbursements for the teachers at the CTE Center. Our national board certified, it's not just teachers now, it's also, we have nurses, SLPs, athletic trainers, so they get an extra $6,000 per year, and the state reimburses us the $6,000 plus fringes. That's $862,528. The Early Learning Collaborative, $800,000. That is for teacher salaries, equipment, and materials to run our pre-K programs. The Educational Enhancement Funds, that's for buildings and buses allotment, and it's $323,000. We have it pledged for debt. It goes to, on our limited tax notes, debt service, because if we do not pledge it, if there is a percentage cut on how the state funds, they they can take this. So as long as it's pledged, they will not mess with our allocation, but they could if there was if they said, you know, we're only gonna fund it at 80% or 90% or whatever. So this is just ensuring we can keep that full amount. Homestead exemption, $700,000. The additional privilege tax, that's heavy trucks that roll through Lamar County. They have to pay a fee. We get about $300,000.
We don't ask,
We just take it. I don't really know exactly what kind of fee they have to pay.
they say it's yours.
But it must be a large fee if just the district's fee is $300,000. Eligible child, that's special services, children that are enrolled in other facilities to best fit their needs. That's about $52,000. We have a nurse grant, and that pays a portion of a
One
nurse.
salary of about 13 nurses.
So it doesn't get the full with benefits, you know, but it does have, this nurse does Medicare screenings in mostly on the elementary schools. Rail car taxes is basically the same thing as heavy trucks. When they roll through Lamar County, there is a rail car tax, and we get $35,000 on that.
So we don't mind hearing the training.
You know, it's right there. Universal Screener is a K-3 academic screener that's required by the state, and they reimburse us the cost of purchasing this. Extended school year, that's $20,000. It's our special services summer program. And our driver's ed reimbursement, $17,500. That is just helps with a little bit of a teacher salary for to run that driver's ed programs, and we do have those at all 4 schools. So our largest revenue item is our state revenue at $73,752,446. Okay, on our federal revenue, I'm gonna the title section is gonna be Heather Rowland, our federal programs director, is gonna talk a little bit about each program, and Josette Sermon, our special services director, is gonna talk about a little bit about her program. On the other things that are listed, starting with the ARC Learn More at the bottom, that's $87,104. That is one of the ESSER programs that was that we had. That's the last one. It's kind of the finalize of that, and it'll go out.
That's the grant we primarily funded JRTC.
Yeah, JRTC. It's an after school tutoring. This is the final of it. They have to encumber it by September and pay it out by December. So it's the end of all the ESSER COVID funds. The Medicaid screening and SBAC, the nurse that we talked about in that nurse grant that does Medicaid screenings, she does student health screenings and sends it through to Medicaid, and we do get a little bit of money back from those screenings that they do. Child nutrition, $4 million, that is the free and reduced reimbursement from federal reimbursements. So our total federal is $10,582,682. So, Heather, you want to talk about yours or the one?
All right, so federal funds, we receive a consolidated group of money in federal funds that cover Title I, Title II, Title III, and Title IV. And for Title I, we receive this money based on our poverty rate, and the poverty rate is determined by the number of students who receive free and reduced lunches. So we have our schools range anywhere from 28% in free and reduced lunches to 79%. And for a school to qualify for Title I services, they have to have at least 40% of their students qualify for free and reduced lunches. In Lamar County, we have historically funneled this money to elementary schools, but in the past few years, we've seen that our middle schools and one of our high schools had really high poverty rates, so we started to distribute that money to those 2 middle schools and that high school. So right now, all of our elementary schools, and then Purvis Middle, Oak Grove Middle, and Lumberton High School receive Title I funds, with that $2,406,981. Now, This year, our budget was, our allocations came in at 85% of what we got last year, so that was a 15% cut. And so in the title realm, you can move money from Title II and Title IV into Title I and a few other places if you need to cover costs. So we did, this is our original allocations that's on the screen. So what we did is we moved some money from Title IV into Title I to help cover the employee costs, because in the past, Title I has covered employees, but it's also covered other things that schools felt like they needed to support instruction. And this year, our Title I budgets are primarily going to be covering employees only. There are a few schools that have a little extra money to cover some other items, but the goal was to cover the employees. And in order to do that, we had to move a little bit from Title IV into Title I. And so we did that. So our Title I now is at $2,432,001. And then Title II is where we use Title II money to provide professional development and support for our teachers. And so with Title II money, we pay for our 5 instructional coaches. We have 2 ELA coaches, 2 math coaches, and 1 social studies coach. And we were short on that as well because of that 15% cut. So we moved a little bit more from Title IV into Title II to cover the cost of those 5 coaches. So now our budget for Title II is $435,185.90. Title III is what we are allocated to help with our students who are English learners. And we have an English learner coordinator, Scott Niari, and he uses this money to primarily cover tutor costs. So he has tutors that work in our schools. So we have 4 part-time tutors paid out of Title III. And then he pays for, he has to pay for like a database that we have to use to input that information. Last year we got a Title III immigrant portion of money, and last year it was $17,500. This year with the 85% cut, it's $14,658. And so we have 2 more additional tutors that are used for our immigrant students with that Title III money. And then Title IV is used for well-rounded education, safe and healthy schools, and technology. So what we do with our Title IV money is we pay for juniors and seniors to take the ACT tests. They also have the opportunity to take the Work Keys test. We provide an ACT boot camp to prepare them for that test. For the safe and healthy, we partially fund a counselor in our alternative school to try to help those students transition back into the regular school placement. And then for the technology, we send a group of educators to a technology conference every year. So that's what we do with our Title IV funds. Something that's not listed on there is we have 5 schools that are in school improvement. This is another batch of money we received from the state, or actually from the federal government. When schools, you can even have an A school, but if one of their subgroups scores lower by a significant amount, and there's a big gap between what a subgroup scores and the school scores, it causes the school to go into school improvement from the state. And so what that means is they give us an additional amount of money, and we take that money to try to support those students to decrease that gap on the state test. All 5 schools that we have are in school improvement because of our special ed students. There's a big gap between the special ed students and the school as a whole. And so what we're doing is these 5 schools will receive that money, and that they're using that money for after-school programs, for daytime tutors, to bring consultants in to train our teachers to better equip them to support these students. And so that's what we are doing with that money this year. And then we have one school gets, Summerall Middle gets around $50,000, Oak Grove Middle gets $128,000, Oak Grove Elementary gets $56,000, Purvis Upper gets $48,000, and Purvis Middle gets $48,000. So it gives them a nice little bit of money that they can use to support those students. And then last, we have our 21st Century program, and this is an after-school program for elementary schools. We will get $260,000 for this program this year, and we We can't offer this program to all schools for the 25 school year because of the amount of the budget. So what we did is we looked at we focused on the highest poverty schools and the schools that are in school improvement. And so we have Bellevue, Oak Grove Elementary, Lumberton Elementary, Baxterville, Purvis Lower, and Purvis Upper will receive 21st Century funds this year to offer an after-school program for those students. I think that's all I got. Y'all have any questions? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
And I'm Josette Sermon, Director of Special Services. I get 2 pots of money. One is IDA Part B, and it's about $2.5 million. And then I get pre-K money, which is about $70,000. The bulk of my money goes to people. We have a lot of assistance to help meet the needs of our students because our teachers can't be everywhere they're supposed to be. For the evaluation of students, this year I'm going to have 5 full-time psychometrists. We're evaluating kids at a large number, and a lot of those are pre-K students. For whatever reason, we haven't solved that mystery yet, but it seems to be pre-K. We do have some behavior modification classes out here in the back where we work with students on their behaviors when they're having trouble in the gen ed classroom, and that's gen ed and SPED back here. And so we do pay some money for that. We have some employability classes. A couple of years ago, the state changed the diploma tracks, and so we now have traditional and certificate. We have a group of kids in there that kind of fall in between. And so what we try to do is give them some practical skills that they can use when they leave school because they're not going to get a traditional diploma. But we don't want to just send them off with nothing. Project Surge, that's at the hospital. This year we had 2 students. They go and they do internships, rotations, and with hopefully getting some employment there. And I think we do have one this year who got employment at the hospital. And we don't pay for people there anymore, but we do have to transport them. Behavior specialists, we've got 12 behavior specialists, which is probably one of the highest in the state. But we're really trying to meet the needs of these kids. We've seen a lot of mental issues and also some behavioral issues. So most schools have their own, if not 2, behavior specialists. We've got 1 physical therapist and a part-time physical therapist and 2 full-time occupational therapists. Student devices, this is not like the Chromebooks, those are all bought through technology. These are for my nonverbal students who need devices to communicate. Specialized equipment, we have students who need help using the restroom. So that's a large piece of equipment, or maybe something small, like we have a student who needs a specialized spoon in order to feed herself. So that's where that comes in, and then professional development. Any questions?
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, our next section is 16th section. I think we finished our federal 16th section revenue. We have $1,065,000 in property leases, rents and leases. Earnings on our and interest on our investments of $672,000. Oil royalties, that is the Baxterville area has oil and gas lease, and we should receive about $225,000 from that. Interest on loans of $142,000, and that is the loans that we loan ourselves from our district principal fund. We can't just use the funds, we can borrow it and we have to pay it back to the 16th section principal fund with a 4% interest. Now, at the end of the school year, at June 30th, we can transfer the 4% interest back into operating, but it has to show that we paid the principal back and we paid the interest back, and then we can flip that interest back to operating. So it's, in essence, a 0% interest loan. And as most of y'all know, that's how we built Longwood Elementary. We borrowed from ourselves and built it. That is a low interest loan. So, well, currently that's the only loan that's left we've borrowed from time to time to do other, you know, it has to be capital items, we've done that, but we paid all those loans off. This, the only thing remaining is what we owed, to loan agencies. We have timber sales estimated $105,000, and that is based on whatever the Mississippi Forestry Commission recommends on cuts in a year. So we're estimating that at $2,210,000 for next year. Okay, and our expenditures. We've got, you know, the biggest, like we talked before, the biggest item is our salaries and fringes. That is just, you know, 1,600 employees. We talked about an average teacher being a AA with 15, and that is at about $75,000 apiece. The teachers did not receive a state teacher raise this year, but, you know, you voted to give them an increase in their local supplement that it increased about $600 per teacher. So, that is, like I said, that's the biggest items we have. So we have school operating budgets, just there to operate the principal's office, their instructional supplies and needs, and just the basic, because most of all, a lot of those maintenance items, we have to pull those out separate. They're not in their day-to-day operations. They're mostly in our district facilities operating budgets. So we have all the district departments that have budgets. Utilities, that's about $2.5 million a year. Facilities, copy machines cost us about $360 a year. So these seem small, but when you multiply them by the number of schools, the number that you have to have in a school, it's a lot of money. HVAC systems, we have got $550,000 budget in that, and that's no major change outs. That's just keeping them the ones we have maintained. Lawn care, we outsource our lawn care, our janitorial services, so that, you know, that is about $2 million between both per year. Waste management substitutes, that's about $600,000 a year. So these are large ticket items. I didn't put every line item of everything we have because it's take us till tomorrow night this time to go over that. But so transportation, that is the transportation is just this is about 1.8 that we have just for the operations of keeping those buses rolling. This does not have anything to do with diesel, tires, oil. It does not have, it's not their salaries, so this is just the maintenance. We're also going to purchase 13 buses, and the average cost of a new bus is $130,000. And
Last one was $139.
And Mitchell told me on a new sped bus is about $185 was the cost of the estimate he got last week. So this takes a lot of those. So, but our goal is that once we get this 13, there will be no route buses in Lamar County that are air conditioned. So this will finish us up. Property insurance, bus liability, work comp, all our insurances. Mr. Bell's going to tell us about that shortly, and it's a huge increase, and it is due to the large losses in the southeast. A lot of that, you know, is based on property. So he'll talk a little bit more about that. Another large ticket item is we replace the student Chromebooks for 3 grades each year, so that's about $850,000, and we replace 3rd, 6th, and 9th. So that's just the larger ones, but on the percentages, you see that the salaries and fringes are $93,674,000. That's about 69%. That is lower than it has been at times, but we reduced some of those extra funded positions. After the 3 years, we did not keep some of those positions, so those are out of this. Then we outsource child nutrition, so those positions that would have normally shown up in salaries, they're actually showing up in the other operating and what we pay Chartwell's each month. So that's 69% of our budget for salaries. Our other, just combined, is $36,150,000. Debt service of $6,727,000. Total expenditures are 136, 552, 576. If you go back and look at the revenues, it's gonna be a little bit more in expenditures, but that is larger because we have already received some of the grants or not yet expended some of that, so that we will expend it this year, so. That is an overview of these last pages, that is the actual printouts of the budgets. And as of now, we'll present this to you on July 15th for adoption, and it will be presented as you know, for adoption, just like we presented it tonight. I don't see anything changing between now and July 15th. Any questions?
All right, is there any,
Item 5?
yeah, any questions?
Questions?
I had a quick question. The revenue school lunches, have we seen an increase since Chartwell took over?
The revenue on the participation is up, yes. I can't tell you exactly where it falls because there's some in the 1.4 that was for paid, and the 4 million is for free and reduced, so it's kind of hard to,
Right.
overall, yes, because participation is up.
Good, yeah.
I don't know what percent it is, but I know
As long as
that's
it's on the plus side.
it is up, so.
Thank you, Ms.
All right, thank you.
All right, item 6, Mr. Bell.
Okay. Have a lot of papers, and y'all have most of it. But if you need copies, I got plenty of them. This is, I'm gonna try to make this as easy to understand as I possibly can. There are two competing programs that you're looking at. Both have, you know, things that are going for it, and both have things that don't go for it. I want to start off with why Liberty Mutual is not renewing our insurance this year. It has nothing to do with Lamar County. So the graph that you're looking at is basically what it is. They can't charge enough money. They're losing. And so they're getting off of most of school systems in Mississippi and in the Southeast. Some they are keeping some old ones that don't have as much exposure to convective exposures. These days, convective is what underwriters are going after or going against. We haven't had a hurricane since 2005. That's kind of out of sight, out of mind for them, and they've really paid a lot of money out. And it's not just Liberty Mutual, it's everybody paid a lot of money out under these convectives. There's a page inside of that graph that you can see. There's a map of historical tornadoes, convective storms, and you see what South Mississippi looks like. So, having said that, that's why Liberty Mutual, we found this out earlier this year, and immediately talked to Dr. Hampton and Jennifer, and obviously we mark it every year. We start that in January. In the spreadsheet attachments that you got last week, the marketing that was in that, there's an extensive list, and you'll note that in comparison, what you're looking at on this spreadsheet is the best thing that came out of that set of marketing. So that would be the first spreadsheet that you got that shows AmWinds, AW, Liberty, and Berkeley. So AmWinds would be the property side of it, Liberty would be the casualty side of it, and Berkeley would be the auto side of it. Under that program, never had physical damage from buses. Okay? And we got a recent, basically a total of a bus that somebody else hit us, and we got our money out of that. But we probably ought to consider physical damage on these buses, especially since they're newer. And to do that, you would add $55,000 to that AW Liberty Berkeley, which would bring the differential between the two programs right at $300,000. The MSBA includes physical damage in their program. The buses are included. It's at $2,500 deductible. They do have, all the buses are parked in one spot overnight, and tornado hits or hail hits, it takes 3% wind deductible. And then if it's a fire, it takes a $10,000 deductible. So 20 buses get hit, it's 3% of the value of the buses. If 20 buses burn down, it's $10,000. So, yeah. So, it's not just the comprehensive and the collision that you're worried about, it's when they're all apart. And so, if you did that with Berkeley, every bus would have a separate deductible under that scenario. If you do it under the NSBA, it's only either 3% or $10.
So we would have tornado right now with all the buses parked at Purvis High School.
A separate deductible on each one would not be good.
Right now, we don't have any coverage.
But how much cheaper? Yeah.
We would be paying.
We have nothing right now, yeah.
But, yeah, when we started this, y'all started on a program of upgrading buses. And, it used to be, it was a $55,000 bus, or $25,000.
It was 90 not long ago.
I know it, and now it's just done that. So that's why I think it's a good idea to consider physical damage in salaries. So there is a deductible, there's a wind deductible difference in the two programs. And both have good points and both have bad points. The AmWinds deal is there's a buy down inside of that from 5% down to 1%, subject to a $500,000 minimum, okay, per location.
And this is on what?
That's on the AmWinds Liberty Berkeley. So, I ran a study on, okay, if we have a small building that gets hit on a campus, under that scenario, it's $500,000, right? If we have two small buildings that get hit, just because it says 1%, it's still a $500,000 minimum. So, $1 million building at 1% would be 100,000, right? And it gets wiped off the map. It's still $500,000 deductible because it's the minimum. The other program, NSBA, has a 3% deductible, but it is subject to a $100,000 minimum. So in that scenario, all smaller buildings gain ground, right? But the larger buildings lose ground. So,
The ones that are gonna cost the most.
Smaller.
right, I mean, so let's think about this. If two campuses get hit by the same tornado, the minimum under one program is $500,000. If two campuses,
Explain that a little bit, the minimum what?
deductible
Minimum deductible, 500 for
for
both schools.
both schools, okay?
What's the maximum deductible?
It's 1% of the values, all the
Of
way
all
up.
of both schools together?
All the way up. Well, yeah, on each school.
But what I'm saying, yeah,
So,
separate?
Yeah,
work
separate.
together.
Yeah, so the deductible applies per location.
This is the worst news you've ever brought up.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I don't make this stuff up. Under MSBA, if the same occurrence hits, that 100,000 under that goes on an occurrence because it's not on per location, okay? So that minimum of 100,000 is there, but it's 3%. So again, it depends on which location gets hit as to whether or not we made a decision, a good decision by going with MSBA or a bad decision by going with MSBA. So I've got both of these in spreadsheets if you want to look at them. And you can just throw a dart and say, okay, that building gets hit. You know, where am I better off? I think in a hurricane scenario, you know, you can look at it by campus, but I don't know if you go back to Katrina, not everything got damaged.
Right.
So,
One thing works in our favor is how spread out our district is. A lot of
absolutely.
times- A lot of times it works in our disadvantages for transportation and just
Yeah.
all those things, but, you know, we've had situations where it's been like a severe thunderstorm in Lumberton, but it's sunshine and Summerall, you know,
So-
and so.
In the tornado that got high school, what was tore up most?
Football, baseball.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, under the M-Winds thing, okay, the outdoor, so that's another thing under the M-Winds. They're limiting outdoor property
So
to
scoreboards.
$250,000 with 10%
Bleachers and
deducted.
press boxes.
MSBA does not do that.
They said it's on campus, it's on campus. No matter what the structure is.
We have outdoor property is bleachers, turf, scoreboards. I could make an argument that a press box is not outdoor property. I can make an argument that these bathrooms aren't outdoor property. But the big stuff is outdoor property. So,
It sounds to me like you're pushing us towards MSBA. Would that be your recommendation?
as soon as I say that, the worst on the other side is gonna happen.
I don't know. But you save more money up front.
You do. You get
And
outdoor
you're
property.
risking, it's a gamble for
Which
possible
building
either
is it?
way.
So,
It's
so
a
you
gamble.
take the high schools at, the high school is at 50 million, 50 some odd million, okay? The high school itself. 3% is $1.5 million. But you take Baxterville, you're looking at $100,000. You take parts of, Purvis, so these are the biggest ones.
When you look at that, most of our issues in churches have been things like buses and how to build, like at Baxterville the other day, where the roof
Yeah,
blew off.
yeah, yeah.
I mean, so it's
of the whole barn.
Bill Warren here. And so, you know, so you gotta look at it that way, and in my opinion, and correct me if I'm wrong, Ross, is that, you know, at some point, we will get assistance from either the state or local or federal government if it gets to a certain.
Big deductibles and stuff like that. I mean, it's not like you were trying to avoid insurance.
Right.
You're trying to make a good business decision with the information that you have. And without being clairvoyant, it's hard to say, yeah, 100% on this, or yeah, 100% on that. But there is a $300,000 differential.
So, you know, in my mind, I'm thinking, what happens if the mother of all tornadoes, it happens on Saturday or Sunday, because we don't want to have a Monday or through Friday, because we don't get a teacher at school, but it just levels of buildings, what do? You know, we do have our 16th section land principle to keep us on the feet until we can get, you know, insurance and, you know, federal assistance or whatever we need to do. So, I don't want to say it, and this might be the wrong term, Ross, but in some ways, we have to kind of almost self-insure in some ways. Would that be?
These days,
Yeah.
I can tell you, I mean, we're gonna get to the limits too, but these days, everybody is looking at loss limits. They can't insure an entire schedule anymore. And so, under the ambulance deal, there's only 50 million there, okay? And under, I'll get to the way the approval or the MSBA works. Of course, look, we've looked at MSBA in the past, and we always do. And we've always been able to get a better deal. And I've always said MSBA is there for a reason. It's not the court of last resort, but you're gonna take on certain things, certain responsibilities inside of that you wouldn't have to take on in a normal,
Why don't you explain that to the board?
we're gonna get to that in just a second. But let me give you an example. Under the ambulance deal, if Baxterville were wiped off the map, okay, it'd be a $500,000 deductible. Under MSBA, 100,000, because the total exposure at Baxterville Elementary and Middle School is not, the total exposure, well, that's at 1%. It's a $500,000, okay, let me get to the other side. It's in there somewhere. It's 289,000. There's $500,000 under ambulance, 289 under MSBA. So 100.
With $300,000 of saving, it's really a wash, you know, if that were to happen, you know, it's always.
But I can tell you that also the way this works, if the first two, I'll give you an example. The first two,
Purpose, yeah, we're covering the occurrence, not under occurrence, that's right.
so the first two buildings on the schedule, Summerall Elementary, the two biggest buildings there. One is 11 million, but one total insured value is right at 16 million. The other is 2.4 million. Under, if those two buildings are here, under MSBA, you're right at 500 and some odd thousand. Under the other one, you're right at 500, well, that's 500,000 minimum. So 1% would be 159,000. 1% of the 2.4 would be 24,000. So it's 174,000, but it's subject to the $500,000. And so you're $500,000, so that you're just passing dollars back.
And you've already saved a few $100,000 in premium up front.
So let's talk about, and also keep in mind the School Board Association, y'all know this, do you? Right? I would venture to say claims would be probably a lot easier to handle that way than having to go through somebody we don't know. And the reason, I mean, look, we've had Liberty, and Rick is town council for Liberty, and that's helped in certain cases. It hadn't, not so much on property, but on the liability aspects. So that's the kind of thing I'm after with, if we're gonna change to somebody instead of having to bring in somebody from North Carolina to try to adjust a claim here in Mississippi.
Does MSBA have their own claims force? They use independents on it?
Well, they use independents, but they have what they call their written in, they know them.
Yeah.
Okay. So, I've got, did you have that? Did we give them all that? It's right here. Yeah, there it is. talk about how MSBA is structured. All right, so, oh, yeah, that's the email that explains it. So when you think about a $250 million shared loss limit, that means you're sharing that with other school districts. So the first thing you think about, the first thing I think about is who we have around us, right, geographically. So that could possibly we'd be sharing with, okay, in that 250 million. You got Greene County at 66, Richmond that's very small. It's
That's like ours.
yeah, it's very small. Columbia at 74, Marion at 79. And then you want to say, all right, well, tell me who you got that's hurricane exposed. They have 0 exposure in tier 1 or tier 2. So that would be the 3 coastal counties and the 3 counties that stack on top of the coastal counties. So 0 exposure there. So far, so good. So far, so good on that. So no property, tier 1, tier 2. So these days, with the advent of big data and all this modeling and whatnot, it's just going. It's probably going to get more technical because of AI, but they model this stuff and they use their model, which is AIR, and don't ask me what the acronym stands for, and RMS, and they use a combination of those models. PML means probable maximum loss for the entire fund is 67 million. So they buy a $250 million loss limit that's shared, okay? And they've got a modeling telling them that in a wind event, that could be worse, a 500-year wind event, the worst it could be is 67 million, or not worst, but that's the probable maximum loss is 67 million. So what that tells me, when I see PMLs at 67, and I see a pooled limit, and that'd be on the occurrence at 250, it tells me there's enough headroom in there for, you know, a margin of error, like you said, margin of error. MSBA has 49 members. They have $3 billion in property values, and has never had an assessment. So this comes down to what Rick was talking about a minute ago. It's called joint and several liability. So when you buy insurance from the MSBA, basically you become a member of a pool. Members of the pool at some point could be assessed. But how do we get there? Okay? The pool retains $150,000 Varsity Pool's exposure per occurrence. Okay? So if you've got $5 million in profit sitting out there, right? Plus you're funding the current year with premium, and you've got that sitting out there, you're only going to eat away at that $150,000 at a time. Okay? So what kills you in that is, let's just say, 20 fires that occur across the state. They're going to have 20 times 150 will hit the pool. So then if they run out of the loss fund, which is funded tonight, actuary funded 90% of the confidence level, so they hire these actuaries and they say, you know, this is what you need to fund for losses based on historical experience. This is how much you need to have it in your loss fund. That'd be the premium dollars that are going in, right? This is how much you need to fund that. If if they exhaust that loss fund at $150,000 apiece, then they buy $1 million of excess reinsurance on top of that.
They, as MSBA.
MSBA has $1 million on top of the loss fund. So you say, what if we get past, and I'm asking all these questions, right? So, okay, what if we get past $1 million? When we get past the loss fund, we get past $1 million, then what do we do? Well, and the property inside of it, they have $3 million in profit. Keep in mind, we're eating away at this 150 at a time. So think about the number of occurrences that would have to you'd have to have at 150 apiece to blow through whatever the premium, the loss fund is this year, to blow through that, to blow through the $1 million excess, to blow through the profits. And then if they do go through that, they come back to you and say, you've got a payment assessment. So how does the assessment work? It is per ride. It's what your premium dollar compares to the total premium fund. Okay? And at this point, near as I can tell, you're about 13% of that number. So let's say they had $1 million assessment. 13% of that will be yours.
Is the $1 million reinsurance the max? I think that's it.
Yeah, and if you think about it, I think they've done this built this very conservatively, because when you eat away at $5 or $6 million, $7 million, whatever it is, in terms of the loss fund, when you eat away at that at 150 a pop, you got to have a lot of those to go through that, and then you have the need. So, that's, they only retain 150. So, having said that, I can answer any concerns that you have, Rick. If I don't have the answer, I can find the answer.
Ross, I've been here longer than anybody else, but I will tell you that we've never dealt with numbers like this before. Because the school board and Jordan's father-in-law was on here, and he would always take his insurance, and it's like, I want a sure thing, I don't want to have a risk, and a tail hit me 3 years from now, I got to come up with $200,000. And so they always said no. But they also want big numbers that are pretty big.
Like that.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's a whole different ballgame now. So, there's the money dealing with it each and every day, to try to figure it out. But,
I can tell you this.
there is a risk factor that's there.
Oh, yeah. Albeit small,
Yeah.
there is a risk factor that's there. I just don't think, just my personal opinion, and this is not a professional opinion. I'm putting myself in your shoes. I'm sitting here looking at this, and I've got to figure out if I'm going to save $300,000, get outdoor property covered, and put physical damage on buses, and all that by saving $300,000, and I'm going to take this kind of risk.
Yeah.
And the risk is they got to blow through all their money before they get to me. I can promise you this will be if you approve the Mississippi School Board Association, I presented these things before, it will be the first one that people will take. But again, we haven't dealt in this neighborhood before. We're in a totally different world.
Thinking through this, if the reason liberties of the world are out, and state farms and homeowners and everything else, is because the cost of the places are so high.
Rate inadequacy. And I can tell you what else was happening too. For so many years, people, or the insurance industry allowed people to undervalue their buildings, their property. So if you had a $10 million replacement schedule, and you were only insuring $6 million of it, the insurance industry was collecting premium on $6 million, when they should have been collecting premium on $10 million.
They get a minor, they get a significant loss, but not total, but they can pay the total.
Absolutely, absolutely. So 3 or 4 years ago, they just started saying, hey, look, you know, construction costs, ever since COVID, construction costs are up, and you guys gotta bring your values up. And the way they did it was, we'll give you this price, if you will insure to this level, okay? Or you can keep it the same and pay us this price.
But the risk that we would have from anybody when you're in a pool is that a year from now, or 2 years from now, these loss ratio numbers are gonna go up just because construction costs are going up, repair costs.
And it's up to them, and it's up to the pool, and if you go to this pool, I would highly suggest that a person on this board be very involved with the MSBA.
12% share, we're the biggest player out there. One of the biggest.
One of the biggest.
49.
Yeah.
49 members.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You gotta be the biggest.
Yeah.
So 12%, again, even if, let's say it's a $2 million assessment, 12% is what, 240,000? So, is that right? Did I do that right?
Do you know, when you guys were researching this, when you were talking to them, you know a catastrophic event, worst case scenario that has happened in a setup like we are here in Lamar County where multitude of schools were hit or?
And I've been at this for 42 years, no. Well, yes, on the coast.
Right. I'm not saying it can't happen, I know, but I'm just wondering past history.
I mean, you think about that tornado that went through Alabama that had 100-mile long, half-mile wide, even that wouldn't take y'all out.
Well, even when the high school was hit at Oak Grove, the middle school was half on.
Yeah, I know, go
Yeah.
figure.
So,
Yeah.
here's the thing. I don't know who built all these buildings and who approved plans and whatnot, but most of your schedule is Superior Construction, okay? And in years past, that has commanded a more competitive property premium. I promise you, if you had there's $357 million on this schedule, okay? I promise you, if you had $357 million of frame constructed property, you wouldn't afford it. You couldn't afford it. We would be looking at a $20 million loss. So whoever's done that did everybody a favor, and thinking more long-term than just build the cheapest building I can build. So,
You're seeing it in the residential market now with the whole roof shift. I work for Farm Bureau.
yeah, oh, okay.
It's fraud investigation, I don't do the sales, but I'm around it enough to know. Now with the older roofs, I mean, the premiums just, because of the cost of replacement on an architectural roof, a 3-tab or whatever, it's just.
Don't I know it, just did.
Roof.
I just did it.
You know, no pun
And I'm like,
intended. Yeah.
what?
Yeah,
You mean what?
yeah.
That's, you brought, that's another thing. Under the Amwins deal, any roof that's over 12 years old is gonna be actual cash value, okay? Any, they have an endorsement, it's called cosmetic roof limitation. So if you got a metal roof and it gets dinged by hail and it's still functional, no question. So,
And that's not through the MSBA, that's.
no, that's the other one. So, look, I've spelled out all the differences, and in my, if Oak Grove gets hit by a tornado and it tears the entire high school up, you're looking at $2 million.
But how long does it take? Okay, so,
Each year stands on its own.
okay, but it may take a year or 6
Well,
months after
yeah,
to know what the losses are. So this is a 1-year plan, July 1st to June 30th. And when June 30th, there's something that happens, then we would know at least within, 6 months or a year, that
Well-
next year what our tail is?
I can get them to give us the actual studies, and tell us what incurred but not reported might be. But, you know, another way to do that really is to maybe pre-fund, you can call it what, a casualty expense or whatever, but pre-fund something, so that if you are ever faced with an assessment, it would be there. And if we ever leave with, if we ever leave, then, yeah, if we ever leave the MSBA and things get more competitive on the other side, I don't see that coming for some time. I do see capacity coming into the marketplace, and the only difference that's making is everybody is willing to put up more of a line. So last year, we had, you may have had to layer this up, and everybody would have taken $2.5 million and taken 40 carriers to do that. Now they're taking $5 million or $10 million, and it's taking a lot different, so the capacity is good now. And what that tells you is they feel like there's now rate adequacy in the market. That's what they tell you. That's what it's done. When they're willing to commit more capacity, what it tells me is that they think there's more, that there's rate adequacy in the market. Now, the next shoe to fall may be if we get past what they predict to be the worst hurricane year we've had. We get past all of that stuff, and you may see another player come in, but I have yet to see a player come in and stay. Okay? We had Travelers. They came in, they stayed for a while, they got ripped and ran with the tail. We had Zurich come in. They got whipped and they ran with their tail. Then you had Liberty come in, and they got whipped, and that's the reason why you're looking at it. And they ran with their tail. So it's good that we market these things every year, in case there is a run of 4 or 5 years where somebody is willing to do it. But I've yet to see a carrier stick in this business for longer than 7 or 8 years. I mean, you can look at that historical right there, and that gives it to you.
Hey Ross, on the MSBA, you have the no property in tier 1 or tier 2. Is that they are just not members right now, or they can't
They
be
will
members?
not take that exposure.
Okay, that was my question.
Yeah, they will not take that exposure, and it's smart that they don't.
Absolutely.
It's
Cause I'm
it's a
thinking
little
of
good for
Hancock
us,
County
too.
right now, about to be MSBA. If I'm looking at the same numbers that we're looking at, or worse.
Yeah.
That's what I'd be. Hey, okay.
Look, I've torn this apart everywhere I can tear
Yeah.
it apart,
Yeah.
and put it back together. And by the way, we just got that quote by MSBA on Friday, and so they always operate up to the last second, and I hate that, but I can't. I can't send anybody up there to beat them up or anything like that.
Yeah. Might need 'em.
Okay, folks.
Now, any of these other members start, let's say, drop out, a couple drop out, of course, then we're gonna eat, it'll be dispersed with the remaining.
So that's the other part of joint setup, right? So if somebody attrits, now your share gets a little bigger, right? But what they have told me is that they're gonna be after some of the larger school systems. And if they can put them in there, now we start doing this.
I'll be talking to the superintendents.
Well, I guarantee you, they're facing, right now, they're facing the same
Oh, I
thing.
guarantee you. I guarantee you.
I also like the idea of the familiarity with the adjusting staff, that would, in a worst case scenario, because the last thing you wanna do is get somebody.
Well, you'll look on that, if you look on that marketing sheet, you'll note that RSUI, what they said. They said that there was.
Got contentious.
Yeah. And see, that is the worst case scenario.
Yeah.
Is to have an adjuster that is in a carrier that lives off in Wisconsin somewhere.
Right.
and it's out of sight, out of mind.
Yeah. Well, I adjusted 5 years before I was a fraud.
You know what I'm
I've
talking
been on
about.
storm duty and.
All right. Any other questions, anything else? I mean, thank you, it's, I know it wasn't easy, I know it was a lot of hard work, but it's good information.
I wish you'd bring us some better news.
You had some good years, Ross.
Yeah, you had a good, it's been a good run.
You had a good run here.
You had a good run.
Oh, Jennifer, we need to vote.
And by the way, the property deductible, just so you know, property, the AOP deductible, fire deductible, under ambulance is 50, under the MSBA is 10.
So if you need, and I'm gonna take
I just heard,
yeah.
I just heard your recommendation.
I'm gonna take the advice from our professional here in the room, and, as we've talked about as well, Jennifer, I feel comfortable with moving forward with the MSBA, given the scenarios that the games are playing. Morgan, do you have any, is there anything that you'd like to add to that? I mean,
I would hope that we would also allocate some money to set aside, to start building the pool, just in case.
just in case,
You know,
an insurance policy for the insurance policy?
That's right.
Our own reinsurance.
Self-insurance.
Yeah, no doubt.
So, yeah.
Hearing that recommendation, I make a motion that we go with the MSBA.
Second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Passes
Well, thank you, guys.
Thank you for coming, as always.
I get to do this again tomorrow night.
Where?
Cross town.
All right, on to the.
Moving on. All right, I do have approval of the May 13th, 2024 work session minutes.
All right.
Got a second? All in favor?
And I abstain.
Chance abstain. All right, approval of the May 13th, 2024 minutes.
Second.
All in favor? That passes. Approval of the May 22nd, 2024 special called minutes. Your motion.
Motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
It passes. Approval of the monthly financial report for April 2024.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And it passes. Approval of 16 section transfers of lease payments and interest for fiscal year 2024.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
That passes. Resolution to authorize the 3 mil note. Your motion.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Passes. Approval of educational facilities revolving loan fund resolution. Your motion. Second.
Second.
All in favor? It passes. Approval to advertise reverse auction for 3 new serving lines. All in favor?
Aye.
Passes. Approval to advertise reverse auction for new freezer at Baxterville.
So moved.
All in favor? Passes. Approval to advertise for bids on new flooring at Oak Grove High School volleyball facility.
Second.
All in favor? Passes. Approval to advertise for bids on new playground equipment for various locations.
Second for discussion. Just to clarify, we don't know what these various locations are. We're gonna do,
We're gonna do an assessment and.
determine where the most
Correct,
money is.
and we're gonna, and be clear on this, we're keeping all good equipment, we're adding to if we need more, you know what I'm saying? So we do have some, in some locations, we need to be ripped out due to safety issues and this and the other. But, you know, we're gonna add to, we have a clear present need for playground equipment in our district, so.
Is there a motion?
We got a motion and a second.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Passes. Approval to accept bid of $78,527.08 from Trident Southeast for the CNC milling machine for the LCCTE.
This is a grant money, Joe, I want to send that out, this is grant money that, we received for this.
in favor?
Aye.
Approval of change to policy GBRIA and IHFC.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Passes. All right, charge fixed asset custodian for lost, stolen MacBook, EDLA 0347.
What's the superintendent's recommendation on this?
I recommend we do charge, so,
I'll make a motion that we charge the fixed asset custodian.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Passes. Charged fixed asset custodian for lost stolen iPads 024501 and 042857.
motion. Appreciate it costing me $9.35 to do it.
George,
Second.
second. All in favor?
Aye.
Passes. Charged fixed asset custodian for lost stolen Chromebook EDLA 1462.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Passes. Approval of contract with Chartwells for cafeterias.
Recommend Ms. Ashford and Ashford too tonight, so I appreciate her being here and all the work she's done this year. She's done a phenomenal job, and I'm definitely glad to see this back on our agenda, so I just want to say that. Sorry, I didn't mean to call you out of here.
I see anything change with the contract? Mr. Norton?
Yes, I think Dr. Hampton,
We did have an addition to our summer reading program that wasn't on the contract, and we got that added to it.
So that's it?
That would be it, yeah. There was some changes, there was some minute changes to the administrative costs and the managerial costs, I'm talking like hundreds of cents, or, yeah, it was very super minor. And we were still, I do want to point this out, we're still able to keep our student breakfast and lunch costs the same and still operate, which is great, which is, it's
amazing.
It's amazing. And it's just the efficiency of which runs under that. And, at some point, because of food costs, because of all the other costs that build involved, we're seeing, again, we're gonna talk about, athletic and extracurricular activities. We're seeing costs go up not only in insurance, but everything else. And so at some point, we're gonna have to come to you, but this year, we still feel like we can provide those lunches and breakfast at the cost that we've done for the last, I know, 5, maybe 6 years we haven't raised in any prices. So, anyway.
All right, is there a motion?
I make a motion, okay.
Sorry.
Thank you, Ms.
No,
Farmer.
that's good. Second.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Passes. Approval of contract with Janiking for custodial services.
Jan King getting in on time this time.
We did, I did want to make it clear that we did add, one stipulation to our contract that, if services aren't provided, there's a principal gets in touch with, document this, that, and the other, and by this time, when it gets down the list, we do have the option to lower our, payment that we pay them, $500 per occurrence on those things, but, I don't foresee that ever happening, but that's just what if for us, so. Insurance policy, yeah?
Yeah.
I'll put it in.
All right, is there a motion?
I make a motion.
Second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Passes. Approval to raise ticket prices for all sporting events by $1.
Yes, sir.
I mean,
Needed.
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 If you need an explanation, but y'all know how much a bat costs, how much helmet costs, how much, we just had in this, floor for the volleyball facility. We're paying over $25,000 for the gym floor to be redone in, Summerall. We paid $25,000 last year for Lumberton. So it's just the cost of having our extracurricular activities is going up, and we're still, even with a $1, so football will go up to $8, and then all other activities will go up to $6. We're still lower than everybody else in this area. So we're trying to balance that cost of coming to see grandchildren and children and nieces and nephews and all that to come see them participate. But we still have to turn the lights on. We still have to buy the paper products, and we still have to buy all the equipment, the paint, and that grass doesn't turn green unless you have fertilizer on and all that stuff. So, it's a lot of expenses going into it, so I'm sorry.
All right, is there a motion?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. All right, and manager matters, Mr. Harless. Yes.
He's not used to this.
Yeah.
Oh, my God.
I received.
College baseball.
First item is to approve the advertising set bids for a 648 home lease, 16 1 South, 14 West.
Motion.
All in favor? Aye. Passes.
Next item is to approve the advertising set bids for a 598 acre hunt lease and 16 1 North, 15 West.
All in favor? Aye. Passes.
Next item is to approve the advertising and set bids for a 633 acre hunt lease, 16 2 North, 15 West.
Second. All in favor? Aye. Passes.
Next item is to approve the advertising set bids for 518 acre hunting lease, 16 1 North, 14 West.
Motion.
All in favor? Aye. Passes.
Next item is to approve the advertising and set bids for 490 acre pine straw lease, 16 1 North, 15 West.
Motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Passes.
Next item is to approve the advertising and set bids for 175 acre pine straw lease, 16 2 North, 15 West.
All in favor?
Aye.
Passes.
Next, to approve a new 40-year residential lease to Josh Williams.
We've done more house.
You know, this is gonna be, got two on this, this will be lot A on Dearman Road.
Motion.
So moved.
All in favor?
Aye.
Passes.
Next item is to approve a new 40-year residential lease to Josh Williams, lot B.
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Next item is to approve assignment of lease number 687 from Robert Bible to Barbara Quell.
Motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Passes.
That's it. Thank you.
Mr. Hall?
Thank you. All right, real quickly, I won't take a little more time. This one, gave you my notes in the email that I sent to you guys, the roadshow or convocation we're doing by, set by area, this throughout the school year. I also want to say publicly that our registration will start July 1st. We'll open up and we'll start processing those, registration forms on July the 8th. So we'll open it up and then start registering online. We do all our online registration this year. I appreciated and enjoyed the board training that we had last Monday and Tuesday. But it was really good and appreciate MSBA for coming down and doing that. So that's it. Summer, we're waxing floors, we're putting in floors, we're putting in, I mean, there's a lot of construction going on, a lot of improvements going on. At some point, I'd like to put a board to do a tour, see some of the new bathroom renovations we've had that are going in, some of the new flooring projects, the luxury vinyl tile, so we no longer have to pay to get it waxed and all that thing, just so that you can see some of the upgrades that are going on, fencing upgrades and all that stuff. Very, very proud and excited about this upcoming school year.
All right, thank you. All right, thank you, Dr. Hampton. All right, to set the next regular meeting for July 15th, 2024, at the Lamar County School District Boardroom meeting beginning at 6 p.m. Anyone have any issues, Ms. Farmer?
No, sir.
Mr. Chance?
I will not be in town.
Do the week before, that's the problem. I could call in, yeah, for sure.
Okay. Is that good for everybody in July 15th?
Remind you, remind me.
Yeah, okay.
Okay. And you'll be able to join us?
Yes, sir. I can call in for sure.
All right, good deal.
It's a motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
It passes. July 15th. All right, next, consent agenda items. Any questions, Ms. Farmer?
No questions.
Mr. Chance?
No questions.
Mr. Carlisle?
No, sir.
All right, no questions. Is there a motion to accept the consent agenda as presented?
Make a motion?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right, it passes.
No others?
No other tonight? All right, we need to consider executive session.
Motion, we consider executive session.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right.
Make a motion,
There you go. All right.
I'll second.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
Board is now in executive session.